Recording in progress.
Yeah. Okay. All right, why don't we begin? Good afternoon, everyone. Let me call the meeting to order. The Peabody Board of Health will conduct a regular meeting on Thursday, October 24th, 2024 at 4:30 in the Higgins Middle School Library at 85 Perkins Street here in Peabody. That's where we are, and the time has arrived. The first item of our meeting will be the hearings, and we'll take the 4:30 hearing first. Board members ready to begin? Okay, let me read this hearing notice. It's a little bit longer than typical. The Peabody Board of Health, acting under the authority of Section 31, Chapter 111 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, at its public meeting of October 24th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. in the Higgins Middle School Library at 85 Perkins Street in Peabody, or remote via Zoom, will conduct a public hearing on proposed amendments to its regulation of the Peabody Board of Health restricting the sale of tobacco products. A vote to adopt or not adopt the proposed amendments may be taken following the public hearing. I won't read the rest of the hearing notice, but I'll open the public hearing. First, let me say a few words. Thank you all for attending. It's important to hear from you. We've heard from different people in different ways. I've received emails, and I promise to have made an effort to read every one of them. Forgive me if I haven't replied to them all. There are so many, you can understand. We've received documents with signatures, sort of like a petition. We appreciate all of that effort. That helps us in our deliberations as well. So thank you all for your input. We make it an important part of our decision-making, hearing from all of you. I think the most efficient way to operate is we've asked for you all to sign in if you'd like to speak. So we promise to do our very best to get through everyone who's on the list. And intermittently, we'll ask anybody who's on the Zoom call to use the raise hand feature. Sharon will recognize them, and one at a time we'll do our best to take testimony from them as well. To begin with, before we get to the list, we ask professionals often to augment our staff, and we'll do that at this hearing. If it's okay with the board members, we'll hear from some experts, some epidemiologists and others. So why don't we begin there, taking some testimony and hearing from you. So Lauren Nash, would you like to begin? Would you introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like to say?
Yes. Sharon, would you be able to share my slides? Thanks. So for everyone here that doesn't know me, my name is Laura Nash, and I'm an epidemiologist with the North Shore Public Health Collaborative. And so one of the health departments that I work with is the Peabody Health Department, and they've asked me to be here today and present on behalf of the board. And I'm just going to be presenting some information on youth smoking and vaping rates in our community, statewide, and nationally. Next slide, please. So these are just some terms that I'm going to be referring to today. I'm sure we're all very familiar with them, but just in case that you aren't, these are just the two biggest things that I think are a little vague that some people don't always think about. So just some background information about e-cigarettes. So e-cigarettes are battery-powered, non-combustible tobacco products, and what they do is they stimulate the action and sensation of smoking. The difference between e-cigarettes and actual cigarettes is that they're non-combustible, and so they don't produce all those different kinds of smells and actually contain the tobacco leaf itself. And that, with that being said, another form of an e-cigarette is also referred to as a vape in the act of vaping. And so vaping is the act of inhaling and exhaling the aerosol produced by an e-cigarette or any other battery-powered device. And a lot of people nowadays refer to those things as like Sorin, Juul, all those different kinds of things. So those are the two terms I'll be referring to today. But for the most part, the terminology e-cigarette and vape I will be using interchangeably. Next slide, please. So it's true, tobacco rates are on the decline in Massachusetts, especially among our youth. And so most recently it was reported in 2009 that a little less than a quarter of all youth reported any use of any conventional tobacco product. And most recently, as of 2017, that was reduced all the way to a little more than 11%. And in fact, in the last 20 years, cigarette use in our youth has declined by more than 60%. And in 2017, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey in Massachusetts recorded that high schoolers had the lowest rate ever recorded of cigarette use at 6.4%. Next slide, please. But I'd also like to highlight that when you take something out of the system, there's going to be something else that arises. And so for the tobacco industry, one of their tactics was to push e-cigarettes on our youth. And so this is directly from the Surgeon General report in 2016 on e-cigarette use. And it was reported that e-cigarette use increased 900% among high school students from the years 2011 to 2015. Next slide, please. And then in 2017, from that same youth risk behavior survey in Massachusetts, it was reported that the use of e-cigarettes and vaping devices among high school youth at least once was 20.1%, which was double the rate of the conventional tobacco use at 11.4%, which I mentioned before. And I think a big takeaway from that is that e-cigarette use among youth is 6 times the rate than adults, at least that was in 2017. And then by 2019, Massachusetts high schoolers reported having a cigarette at least once was 50%. So we're talking about 1/2 of all Massachusetts high schoolers using an e-cigarette at least once in their lives, and that was in 2019. Next slide, please. And then to talk about generally the tobacco industry, so they spend about $8.6 billion on advertising and promoting cigarette use and smokeless tobacco products, and that was most recently reported in 2022. And then here in Massachusetts, $86.1 million of that was spent on product advertising here in the Commonwealth. According to Massachusetts General Hospital Center for Community Health Improvement, smoking among Massachusetts residents is responsible for a little more than $4 billion each year in annual healthcare costs. And then another factor related to that is that smoking-related productivity costs in Massachusetts is $7 billion a year. And these losses are associated with smoking, cause premature death and other illnesses that prevent people from working. Next slide. So kind of turning the table back to our youth, talking about the risks to our society and all the money that's spent on advertising and product placement. So thinking of youth specifically, what these vapes contain is nicotine, which is a highly addictive substance, which we all know. And that's particularly a high-risk thing for younger kids because their bodies and brains are still developing. And so in Juul pods, they contain e-liquid with a very high nicotine concentration, which is around 5%. So what that basically correlates to and what that means is that one vape pod is equivalent to smoking an entire pack of cigarettes or 200 puffs of a combustible cigarette. And it's also known that these e-liquids contain heavy metals, ultrafine particles, and other carcinogens, which again are toxic to children in their developing bodies, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a few slides from now. And then also in that 2016 Surgeon General report, they reported that secondhand smoke from vaping is considered not safe. And we're still trying to figure out all the harmful effects from exposure to all these aerosols from the user and both the secondhand exposure to these aerosols as well. Next slide, please. Again, we've tried to look at the composition of all the contaminants and all the ingredients within these e-cigarettes. And while we don't know everything that's in them, we do know that they contain nicotine, cancer-causing chemicals, heavy metals, tiny particles that can be inhaled deep into your lungs, things like volatile organic compounds. And then there's also something like flavorings, which we know in here in Massachusetts, we banned the flavoring of tobacco products. But flavorings like diacetyl is a chemical that's linked to serious lung diseases. Next slide. And then one of the facts that I saw in the draft regulation, which I wanted to expand on a little bit more, was that nearly 9 out of 10 smokers started before the age of 18. And so this is a lifetime of addiction for these people. And in 2018, Governor Baker signed into law that no one can buy any tobacco product unless you're 21. So I think that's a big takeaway from today. And then also what I mentioned before is nicotine is especially a high-risk thing for younger kids because their bodies and brains are still developing. And nicotine also interferes with parts of the brain that control mood, learning, attention, and impulse control as well. And so the brain is not fully developed until your mid-20s. So like I mentioned before, it leaves youth at risk for these long-term addictions. And research even highlights that it makes it harder for you to stop smoking as you are an adult and you get older. And then also nicotine in these e-cigarettes and other tobacco products prime the brain for addiction to other drugs and use of other tobacco-related products. Also, another thing, I think that in 2020 and all the attention on the COVID-19 pandemic, something that was really highlighted during this time was the focus on mental health. And so we've been really shining a light on those kinds of things. And so there's been a lot of focus from the CDC on specifically tobacco use and also e-cigarette usage in youth and the correlation with mental health. And so what their research is showing is that the association between youth vaping and cigarette use is correlated with mental health symptoms like depression. And a lot of the times what these middle schoolers and high schoolers are giving the reason as to why they're using these products is because they're feeling anxious, stressed, or depressed. And the thing about nicotine is that they sometimes exacerbate these feelings in kids, so it's making this very cyclical cycle of I'm feeling anxious, and then their outlet that they're using is that they turn to these products. Next slide, please. Another thing from the Surgeon General report in 2016 is that they declared e-cigarette use as a public health concern and a new public health threat. And they also consider e-cigarettes not safe. Next slide, please. And so I know this slide is a little bit, but I've kind of bolded the biggest takeaways from here, the third bullet point on each bullet point there. Or sub-bullet, I rather should say. So in 2023 data, which is the most recent data that we have, nationwide, 10% of high school students and 4.6% of middle school students used e-cigarettes in the past 30 days. And comparing that to Massachusetts data, 16% of high schoolers and 4.9% of middle schoolers reported the use of a vape product in the last 30 days. And so what the biggest takeaway from here is that rates here in Massachusetts are a little bit higher than nationwide. Next slide. And then also, I wanted to include this information from the 2015 Peabody Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And so what this question is asking all of the high schoolers is self-reported vape usage. And so among high schoolers, so the two bars to the left, 41% of high schoolers here in Peabody reported ever using a vape ever in their lifetime. And then 31% of high schoolers reported using any vape product within the past 30 days. And then among middle schoolers, a little bit low, but for middle schoolers ever in their life trying a vape product, it was 28%, and then 23% in the past 30 days. And then also looking at Massachusetts data once again, kind of looking at what the breakdown of the current tobacco product usage is among our Massachusetts youth. So this is from 2023 survey data. And so really any tobacco use among any Massachusetts youth kind of lies around 17%. And so looking at the breakdown of what products these children are using, it's overwhelmingly e-cigarettes and vape products, which is around 16%. Next slide, please. So kind of taking a deeper dive at this same survey from 2023, 1/2 of middle schoolers and around three-fourths of high schoolers reported thinking that most people their age are using electronic vapor products. And so it's kind of that mentality of, I think everyone's doing it. And then only 2/3 of middle schoolers and high schoolers thought that there was a moderate or a great risk of harm from using these products. So I guess that's a good takeaway, but then again, we still have this huge gap of 1/3 of these students thinking that it's not a threat to them or their developing body. And then I just wanted to mention this, is that not only is this a threat to children and their lifelong lives and their bodies and how everything grows, but also it's a matter of health equity. Among both middle and high schoolers, females are more likely than males to report the use of vapes. Not only that, but among LGBTQ students, they were more likely than their straight counterparts to ever report smoking cigarettes, a vape product, or any vape product within the last 30 days. And then talking about race and ethnicity, Hispanic or Latina students as well as Black students were more likely than their white counterparts, same thing, ever report using any vape product or any cigarette product within the last 30 days. Next slide, please. And so another question I wanted to highlight from the Massachusetts Youth Health Survey. So all students in the survey were asked the question in the last 30 days, how did you get your tobacco products? And so there was really a wide range of responses. So what this graph here is showing a distribution of the responses of those who did report tobacco usage. So it doesn't include those who didn't report it. But a lot of people reported getting them from a family member or a tobacco permit holding establishment, and also from friends. So those were the top 3. And so, again, I know this was quite a lot, but I figured to throw in a slide here on the key takeaways from everything that I mentioned. So number 1, e-cigarette use has increased dramatically among our youth here in Massachusetts. 9 out of 10 smokers started before they were the age of 18. That last slide I showed you from the 2023 Massachusetts Youth Health Survey, youth reported getting tobacco products most commonly from a family member, a licensed tobacco retailer, friends, or online. Again, youth, females, LGBTQ individuals, and those identifying as Black or Hispanic are more likely to report tobacco usage than their white, male, and straight counterparts. And then the last slide, which is another key takeaway, is that there's a lot of unknowns about e-cigarette usage, especially the effects of secondhand smoke and whether or not they contribute to long-term health problems, and also the ingredients in the products themselves. But that is all I have.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Yep. It's very valuable to have your expertise. We appreciate that. Okay. Joyce, we'd call on you. You want to introduce yourself and make any comments? I can tell with the little red light, so maybe you press it again. The button on the right? No, huh?
That's all right. I really speak loud enough, like, the whole room. But they can't hear you.
All right. We're going to trade.
There we go. Said it was on, but there, see, now I know I'm on.
Good.
Joyce Redford, I am the director of the North Shore Cape Ann Tobacco Policy Program. I've been doing this for 26 years. I do have something that I'd like to present to the board just in hand. I'll be going over this stuff.
Okay.
1 inch for you. So the nicotine-free generation is the idea of preventing a whole nother generation from becoming addicted to deadly product, nicotine, in all its forms. As Lauren said, that there's regular combustible, there's e-cigarettes, but now there's also, and at the front of your package, there's these little white pouches. Mm-hmm. They weren't mentioned with the new data because they're too new, and they're right here. They look like they're candy, like mints maybe, very similar looking to chew, but unlike chewing tobacco or spit tobacco where you'd have a jar in front of your mouth and you'd spit it, You put these in your mouth like you would chew. They're like in a little tea bag. And you swallow the remnants and all the nicotine. So you get like a really quick nick hit because it's like under your tongue practically. What do you call it in these? The levels of nicotine go from 3%, and we've seen them up to 18% nicotine, milligrams. So that's even higher than like what we were speaking about, what's in the jewel pods. So they're seriously heavy-duty nicotine in these products. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is that NFG is a deadly, we're trying to prevent this deadly product from having another generation addicted to it. It's a predatory industry that has, over the last 100 years, found new ways to lie and entice young people into using their products in a deceitful way. So this was initially, e-cigarettes was supposed to be initially like a cessation product. And then Massachusetts said, no flavored vape. Number one, because we had E-Valley, which was the lung disease caused by the black market e-cigarettes that were out there. And then, just like a perfect storm, we had COVID, a respiratory illness. So that, I think, was a turning point for the legislature to say no flavored products. And in Massachusetts, no flavored tobacco or nicotine products. So how the legislature addressed the manufacturing part of this was to say, you need to give us a letter attesting that your products are not flavored. So the retailers have these letters, and we go in and we find these products. And I'll send these down and around. They're already opened, at least some of them. And you could just open it and smell that it's obviously flavored, yet they have a letter saying that this isn't flavored. So they're undermining the whole tenure of the law. Yeah, can you send those down? So we're in a difficult position of trying to identify all the time, every day, with hundreds of products coming into the marketplace. Some of them, well, all of them declaring that they're not flavored, and yet they are. And we know that flavored products is the number one reason why youth initiate. Because if they had to taste, well, go back to combustible cigarettes. Smoking was very difficult. It took your body a long time to get used to inhaling the smoke from cigarettes. These, they made so that they'd be smooth. This is when flavors were added. They were smooth going down, giving you a lot of nicotine all at once. A young person could become very addicted very quickly. Unlike smoking, combustible smoking, which you had to get used to, these products were easy to get addicted to. And in an industry that's spending $8.6 million, 8.6 million dollars in Massachusetts advertising their products, we go into these stores, or I go into these stores, doing inspections, and everything is a different color or a different label, and they all say clear or tobacco or Virginia tobacco, and yet when we open them up, they're flavors. That purple one was grape, the two pouches are mint, and all of these retailers have a letter attesting. So we're asking an industry trying to sell their product to attest that it's not flavored, and they are lying, straight out lying. And it's happening so fast that we can't even keep up with it. But if one youth knows about this, every youth in the high school knows about it. They know where it's coming from, what flavor it is, what it tastes like, and they're using them. The last thing about these products are they're kid-friendly packaging. Here's just a couple. And these can be used with a THC cartridge or any cartridge that they open up. You could put liquid in them. So those are two, like if you were a parent, you'd just be thinking it's probably a keychain or something. And this one is a pen. It says right on it, very discreet, hidden pen for carts. It works as a pen, it has ink in it, but you put a cartridge in it and you can vape either THC or nicotine. So my ask is not that, or my ask or my tell is that we're not trying to stop any current smokers or vapors or anything, and we're not going to use an age. We're saying that the next generation of people, which is going to take 21 years to have this fully roll out. Looking back 21 years and saying, if you want 21 when this goes into effect, you can never buy this. But if you were 21, you can continue buying this. So the retailers are still going to carry this product, and they're not going to lose their current users, because this won't impact their current users. But it does stop a whole nother generation from seeing this as social norming. You know, I lived through smoke-free workplaces, and you could smoke in your workplace, and it was really normal, and no one thought about it much. And now even smokers are like, you can smoke in here? It's the same concept for if you're going to start a generation of not having this be a social norm, that we can change it. It can be one more step in the process. You guys have, Peabody has a very comprehensive regulation, and this is just one more tool to help, and it addresses a generation not seeing this coming up.
Thank you for bringing all of the things for us to see and smell and
All of those
become
were-
aware of.
All of those were found in Peabody, and this whole bag was found as evidence. Our youth bought it during compliance checks, and we met with the collaborative members, the other 15 members in the collaborative, and had them smell the products, look at the products, whatever, and we've determined that enough of these, we're going to send out a letter across the region identifying these as flavored products, meeting the definition of the current state law, and telling the retailers they cannot carry these products.
All right. Any board members have any questions? No? Thank you, Joyce. Yep, your experience is invaluable. Thank you. Well, I've got a list here. I want to be fair to everybody. Typically, I find it helpful, excuse me, to offer an opportunity for our elected officials to testify. So we have Councilor Dave Gamache. There you are. You want to come up, Dave, and tell us what you'd like to say?
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Where do you start? Great presentation, but it was designed for youth. The youth that can't buy cigarettes, can't buy e-cigarettes unless there's enforcement. Now, I know Sharon has done a great job of going out and telling the establishments, the local stores, of what they can and cannot sell. And as you alluded to earlier, it's an ever-changing thing. It's something that the companies are coming in and they're pulling the wool over the eyes of these poor people who are trying to make a living by selling tobacco products. I'm here primarily because we have a lot of mom and pop stores that survive on lottery, liquor, and cigarette sales. Other than that, they will not survive. And I understand that it's a generational thing, that you're going to stop it from anybody over 2004. That's fine. But we're targeting, in my eyes, the wrong people. You can buy alcohol. You can vote. I was one of those people that in the late 70s, I was able to buy alcohol at 18, and then all of a sudden they took it away from us and made it 21 because we weren't mature enough or smart enough to protect our own bodies. Alcohol is addictive. Cigarettes are addictive. There's no denying that. Let's just call apples apples. But the issue becomes, where do you end this? Where do you take the ending point for people purchasing cigarettes or alcohol? We have a drug problem in the United States. We're focused on that. I think those are the types of things that we should look at. Unfortunately, I see the local stores, and many of the owners are here today, and they'll probably speak and be redundant with what I say. This is their livelihood. If a kid I shouldn't say a kid, because a kid shouldn't be smoking. They're 21, under 21, they shouldn't be able to obtain these, but it's the family members that are giving it to it based upon the research that we've seen today. We have most of the stores that I'm aware of have very stringent rules. They ID the people to make sure that they're of age to purchase cigarettes or e-cigarettes or whatever they're selling. Same thing with alcohol. So I'm here to try and impress upon the board that Peabody is, I consider, an island. If you take this right away, they're going to go to Danvers, Middleton, Salem, Linfield, Lynn, every surrounding community. And what's that going to do? It's not in a larger scope. If the state was to come in and say, yeah, this is fine, then if everybody does it, I think it's fair to these people saying, okay, we'll have to live with it. But to isolate the city of Peabody, as they've done it, I think it's Brookline, is Brookline the one that enforced it? You're just sending the wrong message to these people to go out to another area and purchase these things. It's not fair to these people, it's not fair to the owners. And I can tell you that there will be mom and pop stores that are barely surviving based upon their lottery and cigarette sales. At least the stores that have the alcohol, they've got another niche that they can bring in income. But this is the wrong idea at the wrong time. It's not, in my mind, what the city of Peabody needs to do. We should look at the fact that kids are smoking, and we're trying to educate them. But we all know that kids are going to be kids. They're going to do what they want to do, and when they get older, they can make the decision. I smoked, I quit. I drank, I quit. That's the bottom line. When you get older, you see what's going on. 21 is the magic age. If you're going to tell me 25 is a magic age, maybe that's true. You said that people don't mature until their mid-20s. When I was 18, they said it was 18. Now all of a sudden it's 21, 25. When are you going to mature? Some people never mature. Let's face it, okay? But I'm just here primarily to protect the business owners. They do a good job. You know, sometimes they get caught up in sales that they shouldn't be selling, and Sharon and her office have done a great job to educate them, and they're working with them because they don't want to lose their license. But it's their livelihood. It's their livelihood. And I don't want to see some of these stores having to lose revenue because the city of Peabody becomes an island, and everybody goes everywhere else to get these cigarettes, 21 years and older. So that's all I have to say. I want to thank the board for listening to me. And, I've been an elected official for 28 years, and I just don't think this is the right time to bring this forward, and I would hope that you do not move to adopt this. Thank you.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any questions for me or anything like that?
Any board members? No,
Okay.
other than to say thank you. Your
Thank you.
perspective's
Have a
valuable.
great night.
Thank you so much. Councilor Ann Manning Martin, would you like to join us? Please come tell us what you'd like to say.
Hi, thank you again. I appreciate yet another opportunity to address you, and I'll be very brief because you gave me that courtesy before, so I'll try not to repeat myself. But when I did speak on it, I heard from a lot of citizens of Peabody, also residents across the state and across the country reached out to me and offered me a lot of education on the subject. I'm not a subject expert at all. This is all brand new to me, but in my role as a city councilor, I felt, as Councilor Gamache did, that it was important to address you, this board, because you'll be making the decision, and for me to speak on behalf of the residents of Peabody. And I can tell you that I didn't receive any support or overwhelming support at all for this initiative, for this ban. Quite the contrary. People were, for various reasons, against this, every single person that contacted me. And in addition to, I don't want to repeat what Councilor Gamache has said on the business side, so I will instead talk to you about some of the things that people contacted me about that they were against this ban. It was basically about adult freedoms and personal choices, and all the unintended consequences that have already arisen in other areas and other countries that have enacted this. They're unintended consequences. Everybody understands the goal here, but the unintended consequences were plentiful. And one gentleman from DC contacted me to let me know about it's a case that's in appeals court now, because this is geared towards youth and cigarettes and nicotine. However, it does affect adult-centric products like premium cigars. And I guess in DC, the FDA was found to be arbitrary and capricious in lumping in premium cigar tobacco products, and again an adult-centric product, with cigarettes, which were geared towards youth. And they were found arbitrary and capricious for lumping them in premium cigars, that the health impact through addiction with similar scientific evidence, they found, the court found them arbitrary and capricious, that it was apples and oranges. So that is being appealed, but it's with the appeals court now, but it was found arbitrary and capricious by a U.S. District Court. Again, just an example of an unintended consequence. You're talking about stopping a new generation of youth smoking, yet the cigar on a special occasion, you're really going to tell adults they can't do that. And that is in essence what you're doing. So that was an example given to me that really resonated with me, because that's just everyday people, adults, and you're taking that decision away from them, their personal choice. And again, it's an adult freedom. And then lastly, we clearly have an education and an enforcement issue if all those products were brought in that were purchased in Peabody. We have an enforcement issue. As a city councilor, I will work with this board and support anything that you need in order to assist you in enforcing whatever we need. And I know that my colleagues will be 100% behind that too. That's a problem. So it's an enforcement issue. And on the education piece, I think, and correct me if I have these numbers wrong, is it $600 million in taxes that in Massachusetts that come from cigarette sales? I think it was 600 million, yet we only, is that correct? Okay, let's go with that then. And we,
Double checking for you.
okay. But how much did we spend towards prevention and education? 6 million is the number I have. 6.28 million, okay. That's how much we spend towards education and cessation or whatever programs. So, again, all these tax dollars are coming in, and we're not putting like 1% of it or less towards education and prevention. So, and again, as a city councilor, I will commit to you to assist you with funding or gearing those monies towards this effort to get youth to continue to stop or not start smoking. I will commit to you to do that and give you that assistance as well. So just in closing, the unintended consequences are plentiful, and we have an education and enforcement issue that I commit to you as a city councilor to assist in any way I can to help with this effort to curb young people from beginning to become an addiction to nicotine and cigarettes. And I thank you again for all your time and everything you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for putting this together tonight and moving the venue so that lots of people could come and be comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. You've obviously put a lot of thought and work into this, and thank you for your leadership.
Also, I did not mean to ignore you there. I was pulling it up. It was $86.1 million.
Sorry?
$86.1 million.
Tax dollars.
Oh, tax dollars.
Thank you.
I want to be sure I'm recognizing all of the elected officials. I see Councilor Stephanie Peach. Council, you're here. Yes, there you are. Thanks for joining us. I imagine all of you city councilors have a lot of meetings and a lot of nights out, so here's one more for you tonight. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and thank you for so kindly scheduling it on a night we already have a meeting, so, we just kind of put them all together.
Okay.
I thank you for the presentations. I don't think anyone in this room is here to argue that nicotine or cigarette use or e-cigarette use is healthy and a great choice for you to make. I have 2 young children, And I hope that they make the right decision as they grow up and are put in those positions. I have nieces and nephews who are in high school, and we talk about these things regularly, and I know that e-cigarettes are very widely available to our youth. I remember, I think the second I started public education, I was told wacky tobacco, and there was a huge campaign through my entire youth, and I think that resonated, and you saw that in that decrease in tobacco use, that we saw a significant 60%, I think it was, decline in tobacco use. E-cigarettes, I think, they're obviously relatively new, and they came to the market before the education was able to catch up with it. I remember them first coming out. Obviously, I think they were advertising them in a way to children, but a lot of it was a quote-unquote safer alternative, a way to quit for adults. And obviously, things progressed, and our education system did not catch up with that. I don't think issues like this, obviously, children under 18 cannot legally obtain these products, but they are. And I think that's always been an issue. It was an issue with cigarettes in previous generations. And while when I was in high school, I certainly could have easily accessed cigarettes, I had the educational background through my entire youth that that's not a great decision. I do think probably after 18 and after high school, if we were to look at that college age group of youth that might fall under 21, we might see those numbers increase. But it's a decision, it's a personal decision that people make. It's not a great decision, I don't condone it. But I think this is not something we can legislate, but it's something that we can educate on. It's very difficult to legislate personal choices, but educating is something we certainly can do. I'm here today specifically because I was reached out to by several businesses in the ward that I represent, and how this would be detrimental to these small mom and pop shops. I agree with Councilor Gamache. If this was a statewide initiative and we weren't creating an island in Peabody, it would just be a regulation that these convenience stores and shops need to deal with. But it's not. We're not at that point right now. So to isolate the city of Peabody, especially when our neighbors might bring it up, but who knows if they pass it, we're just putting our businesses at a disadvantage. I understand that your job is to look out for public health, which is why I'm not here to argue the public health of ending tobacco sales, but to create, I'd love to create this idea of make this not the norm. And for me, growing up, when I got to high school, it was not the norm to smoke cigarettes. Some kids did, but it wasn't socially acceptable. And I think through education, I hope when my daughter's in high school, it's not socially acceptable to vape. So I think that's where we need to shift. And as a city councilor, I'm more than happy to put dollars to education within the city of Peabody. And I, would love to work with the board to push for more of that tax revenue that's going to the state from tobacco sales to be used towards education in our schools, and advocate to the legislature to kind of put their money where their mouth is. If they'd like to see a tobacco-free generation, we need to gear our education towards that. We do a lot of great work surrounding other substance use, and I think that has also worked really well. Vapes, I think, just came to the market, and they came quick, and our education just wasn't set up for it. I think we're now learning more and more about it, and now we're in a position to really implement a full campaign swing in our education system to make sure we can create a sense that smoking and vaping is not a normal thing to do, and we'll see those numbers decrease over the next 20 years. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Best wishes with all of your other meetings. Okay. Julie Daigle? Yeah? You're a familiar face to the board. Nice to see you again.
Likewise. Good evening. Yeah, this is a little bit of a bigger room. I served as the secretary of the Board of Health from 2008 to 2017, and I have a big respect for everything that you guys do. I know you're very smart and educated, and your role is to look out for the safety. But I'm here, and I'm compelled, and fortunately, my colleagues have beat me to it, and I won't repeat what they have said, but I am not in favor of this ban. I think it's overstepping, and it seems to be somehow the term of the month, overreaching, that I think the city has, and the state and the government has a certain role. And people have the right to choose what they want to do. And maybe this should be a ballot question, but I don't know that this is something city by city is fair for our businesses. And part of the big reason I ran for council was to be business friendly. And I want to support our businesses, and I would hate to see, I'm glad that we have a lot of them here. I would hate to see them suffer for something that is not equitable, for lack of a better term. And I think maybe this is statewide. I certainly, I'm not a smoker, I don't believe in it, but it's certainly a revenue generator. And I did put this out for the general public and the constituents that I represent, and I have not had one person that is supportive of banning this. In fact, I'm here tonight. We have a meeting in less than an hour, but I'm here tonight to say that our constituents are not in favor of this, and they're not supportive, and they are also confused. We're promoting marijuana, we're promoting other things, and yet we're looking at banning this. So targeting specific industries, I'm not really sure where that will end. I just don't think that the city or the state plays that role. And the most ironic thing is that I have my chicken scratch notes on the back of a McDonald's receipt, and McDonald's is not good for us. I've fortunately just had a coffee, but are we gonna ban McDonald's because it's unhealthy? I'm not sure where we draw the line. So I just wanna say that I support our businesses, and I don't think that we have any role in this, and I'll save the rest of the time because I think there are a lot of people that want to speak. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the board for listening to my ramble.
Not at all, thank you. You did a great job for us while you were working here, and we miss you. Thank you again.
I appreciate that, thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm doing my best in reading the names on the sheets. Have I missed any elected officials? You're going to be first. Hang on, I promised you. I haven't missed anyone. All right, very good. To the city councilors and elected officials, thank you all for joining us. Your perspectives are invaluable to our decisions, and we'll consider your comments in our deliberations. All right. Let me begin to open the rest of the public hearing. Let me ask you, if you wouldn't mind, pardon me, keeping your comments maybe to 3 minutes, thereabouts. We'll be somewhat flexible. I'd appreciate that. And in between some people who are going to want to speak here in person, we have some people on Zoom who will want to use the raised hand feature, and we'll try to intermix so that everybody feels that they're being part of it and participating. At the last meeting, we had a couple of people who wanted to speak. I had to ask them to defer, and Stephen Heffer was the first, so I promised you tonight you'd be the first, so here you are. Welcome again. It's not raining as badly as it was last time. You press the button on the right.
On the right, there we go, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Durkin, and I'll try to be brief, and I also consider it a great privilege because I'm from Cambridge and I'm speaking in Peabody, excuse me. I represent Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights. We accept no funding from any source whatsoever. I was interested because the young woman who presented a lot of epidemiological information tonight She said that 90% of people who smoke begin before the age of 18. Well, this proposed law doesn't affect anyone under the age of 21. So all of that emphasis on teenagers really has nothing to do with this law. This law only affects people who are 21. And this law would mean that, for example, in a matter of a few years, you could be 30 years old, a survivor of combat anywhere in the world, and come back to the United States, and you would be told, well, we don't think you have the judgment to decide for yourself whether or not to purchase a package of cigarettes. I think this is very demeaning to people who are at the age of majority. I think our government and our Constitution implies that individuals have the ability to make decisions for themselves, particularly when presented with all of the information that we have heard about tobacco in the last 50 years. I was just going to say a journalist named Francis Nebel said that tobacco is the world's greatest cause of statistics. And listening to all the statistics tonight, I must admit that that's pretty true, or so it seems to me. But again, all these epidemiological statistics have nothing to do with this law. Now, the CDC just released its 2024 National Youth Tobacco Survey, which is considered the gold standard in this country. And at this point, youth vaping is at a 10-year low. So I know, as this young woman said, epidemiologically, between 2011 and 2015, it went up 900%, but that's because vaping was very new. So for it to go up at all, it went up from 0, so it had a very high percentage. But at this point, vaping is at a 10-year low. Again, according to the CDC, teenage smoking cigarettes is the lowest on record that they ever have. Teenagers are not smoking. I'm sure there's a few somewhere, and I'm sure we could get a one or two from some school here to come and say that he or she smoked, but again, according to the CDC statistics, what are considered the gold standard, the CDC also reports that for every 3 American adults who have started smoking, 2 have quit. So when people say nicotine is a lifelong addiction, I'm sure everybody in this room probably can name a dozen people who have quit smoking or quit vaping and done so with a minimum of discomfort. I'd also like to point out that there's a big power balance at play here. Almost everyone who is speaking in favor of this proposal is a professional tobacco control activist receiving funds from the state or from powerful tax-exempt entities. On the other hand, most of the private citizens who are speaking against it receive no such funds. And again, all of the people who are speaking against it have much less experience before speaking before policy makers, especially some of our convenience store owners, many of whom are immigrants of color, and they really don't have the expertise as some of us, our professional tobacco control activists, have. Chairman Durkin, how much time do I have left?
I'll give you another minute.
Oh, that's very kind of you. It should not take any more than that. In addition, this law creates 2 classes of citizen. If you're born on December 31st, 2003, and you become 21 on December 31st, I think it's, 2025? Is that right? Or whatever the year, you may continue smoking. Whether you're born one day later, you will be forbidden to ever purchase tobacco for the rest of your life, even when you're 40 years old. This is, again, the City Councilor Martin said, is what is called capricious and arbitrary, and the SJC decision notwithstanding, appears to violate the United States Constitution based on arbitrary date rather than age. I think this proposal is coercive. I think it's discriminatory, and given the low rates of smoking and vaping on the part of youth and adults, is unnecessary, and I ask you not to approve it. Thank you again.
Thank you. Let me go to Kate Silba. Welcome, Kate. Please come up. Be comfortable.
Thank you. My name is Kate Silba, and I was a citizen and co-sponsor with Anthony Ishak of the nicotine-free generation birth date phase-out in Brookline. I received no funding for my interest in it. I'm just an advocate on behalf of youth. And I mostly come to thank you for taking this up and to say that I'm completely appreciative that it takes a fair amount of courage because this obviously does matter to retailers. That's realistic to understand and to appreciate. And I know that your mandate as a public health board doesn't formally take into account those impacts, but I understand that that can feel important. And I just want to say a few things about that and also the opportunity to really make a difference with nicotine, which we rarely get. First thing I want to say about it is that there is not one single existing customer of these retailers who they will lose as a result of the nicotine-free generation birth date. That's the kind of special genius of this particular reform. Every single existing customer is retained. The only question is whether or not the students at this middle school will eventually become customers when they age up. But no existing customer is lost. And I think it might be helpful to know that we adopted and implemented this in 2021 in Brookline, and we heard the same concerns, and not one retailer has closed. And because it is such an incredibly gradual reform, the retailers have had the opportunity to adapt their products, to transition to different products, and to make that transition in the gradual way that this reform works. I wanted to say something about the youth question because there's been a lot of discussion about this being a different population. It is true that most people begin using nicotine products when they're underage of the law, but it's also the case that all of the research shows that they obtain it within their social networks. And so they obtain it from people who can purchase it legally, but who are just a little bit older than they are. So there are enormous social network effects and spillover effects that happen when we phase out the sale of nicotine. People have talked a little bit about other products. It isn't the case that we can sell anything. There are plenty of products that have been removed from the market because they're dangerous. Lots have been removed from the market that are not as dangerous as nicotine, things like asbestos, for example. And we don't think of that as the same story as this, and the reason is because this is addictive. The reason is that adults who use this wish to stop using it. The research shows that, but they find it incredibly difficult, that it takes multiple quit efforts, and they're more likely not to succeed than to succeed on their first try. I want to say that because we separate those who are not using it all from those who are currently able to purchase legally, this particular reform doesn't risk a black market in the way that prohibition does, because without addiction, you don't have demand, and without demand, you don't have a black market. Because everybody who currently uses and needs this product will continue to be able to purchase it. Retailers can continue to sell to those who are of age today. And I just want to say that the appropriate legal framework for adopting this is for the Board of Health to adopt it, because it is good public health policy. And the Massachusetts SJC upheld it as the appropriate framework and also upheld it as constitutional. This birth date phase-out might be the way we finally break the dam on nicotine. It's a very particular problem, that it is so addictive, that there isn't a lot of choice involved in it, and that it is so much more harmful than any of the other products that you're going to hear about tonight, implicated in 1 in 5 deaths in the United States. And there's nothing that compares to it, and it's also far more addictive than the other products you're going to hear about. And so if we would like to see some kind of sunsetting of the difficulty that nicotine plays in our lives and in our society, this is a way that does it as painlessly as possible, even for the retailers, who I understand experience concern that they will not have people aging into purchasing, but they will retain every existing customer that they have. And it is also as painless as it can be for current users, because it's compassionate towards them and allows them to continue to be able to purchase. So I just want to, again, thank you for your courage, and I hope you adopt this.
Thank you. Sharon, maybe we can take someone on the Zoom call. Anthony Ishaki?
Hello, I'm Anthony Ishak. I am a pharmacist at a local academic hospital who takes care of patients in the primary care setting, adult patients who are at higher risk of bad cardiovascular outcomes like heart attack and stroke. I also was a co-petitioner with our previous speaker, Kate Silbaugh, for the town of Brookline. I think everyone is aware of the health impact of tobacco and nicotine. I wanted to just spend a moment or two talking about what it actually means in Peabody, right? Because I think a lot of times we quote statistics and people say, oh, that's from the whole country. No, that's from the whole state. No, that's from the whole world. Well, let's look at Peabody. So in Peabody, according to the state government statistics, the lung cancer incidence ratio for the population of the town of Peabody, which is approximately 54,000 people, it's about 55% higher than the rest of the state. The lung cancer mortality rate for Peabody is 15% higher than the rest of the state. The incidence of tobacco use in pregnancy, which is likely to be a younger population, is 10% higher than the rest of the state. Opponents will talk about the distracting stats like tobacco use at an all-time low, and this is because of actions like this. In 2019, when vaping was up, regulations were passed, and that helped to bring down the rate. Instead of being reactive to tobacco, this is meant to be proactive as tobacco companies figure out ways to try and increase addiction. This is meant to stay ahead of the curve. Kate already mentioned that over the course of 4 years, we have not had a permit holder give up their permit because of this. It is very, very slow. In Peabody, the ratio of retailers is 3 times the ratio of what it is in Brookline by the population size. So again, not only is it incremental, but it's spread out over significantly more retailers. The state average for retailers and youth is actually lower than the ratio in Peabody. So there's more retailers per capita for youth in Peabody as compared to the state average. Peabody only gets money from permits. The taxes on tobacco products go up to the state. They don't go to Peabody, it's only permits. However, every single household in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts bears the burden of $1,118 a year because of tobacco-related health issues, because of the extent of the healthcare impact on the state budget. That doesn't include those of us who get employer-based insurance and how we have to pay for that. In fact, there's an estimate that if we were to decrease tobacco use by 1% in the mass health eligible population, it would bring back $70 million to the Commonwealth in the first year. That's money that could be spent for education and for potholes. Someone has already mentioned that this won't impact creating a black market. I can tell you there are other health initiatives that were recently published earlier in the year. Some might be familiar with the sweetened drinks or concentrated sweets tax that have been done by municipalities. There was a study published in a peer-reviewed journal earlier this year that showed that in those communities, use of concentrated sweets went down with that tax, and there was no quote-unquote leakage. In other words, people did not go to nearby communities and buy them elsewhere. That's similar to what we suspect will happen with tobacco and what we've seen in the past with regulations. They compared nearby municipalities and they didn't see that those nearby municipalities sold more concentrated sweets or drinks at that time. In 1984, there was an industry-sponsored report for tobacco stated, if consumers were faced with no available tobacco products, they would reallocate their spending to other goods and services. This reallocated spending would generate additional business opportunities in other sectors of the economy, along with the associated employment and incomes. 2015, a report commissioned by the National Association of Convenience Stores, which have proxy lobbying groups, you may hear from one of their speakers today, quote, C-stores must understand that solely catering to their declining core audience, open parentheses, those purchasing cigarettes, beers, hot dogs, etc., close parentheses, is not a growth strategy, and they encourage the retailers to shift their focus. This has been ongoing for 40 years. It's similar to the phasing out of gasoline for engines. It's very slow and incremental. I would ask that you join the other 9 communities. It's no longer island. We see that, like, as one community takes it on, their partnering communities want to take this action in accepting and approving this regulation to help improve the health for the residents and citizens of the city of Peabody. Thank you for your time, and thank you for deliberating this very important regulation. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Next on the list, I read Maureen Blusby. Maureen, please come up. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Maureen Busby, 54 West Highland Avenue, Melrose. In my role as Mystic Valley Tobacco Prevention Program Manager, I've been inspecting stores and conducting youth compliance checks for 13 years. In that time, I've watched the evolution from flavored cigarillos that look like bubble gum, to jewel devices that look like flash drives, to nicotine pouches that come in plastic tins that, as we saw, look like breath mints. Over the past 2 years, we've seen the pouch market explode. More and more shelf space is taken up by pouch tins, which is a good indication of the growing market for these products. And why not? They're extremely cheap. Boards in my region were early adopters of tobacco prevention policies like T21, flavor restriction, pharmacy ban, cigar minimum price, and permit cap. Some of these policies are now state law. But we continue to see new products, cheap products, discreet products, products designed to attract young users. No matter what steps we took, the industry was a step or 2 ahead of us, or 3. In the rare instance when we got a bit ahead of the industry, they rebounded very quickly. For example, as you know, Massachusetts banned all flavored tobacco products, including menthol, in 2020. Not long after the ban took effect, we started seeing Newport non-menthols with large signs that said, "For the menthol smoker," not even subtle. These new non-menthol cigarettes actually contain a chemical that tricks your brain into thinking that you're smoking a menthol cigarette. Some menthol smokers who had quit told us the use of the original green packaging was triggering. Now there are highlighter vapes, which most parents would not, highlighter vapes, vapes that look like highlighters, that most parents would not easily identify as a vape device if they saw one in their kid's backpack. In vape devices, I have one here, with an LED screen so you can see how many puffs you have left to make sure you stock up before you run out. It's kind of like the range indicator on your car's dash so you remember to gas up. And while I haven't seen them yet in my area, but I'm sure I will, there are even newer vape devices on which you can play a video game. Yes, play Mario Brothers on your vape device. This is the tobacco industry playbook. Produce and market products that appeal to young people with plenty of addictive nicotine. Their motto is, and this is a quote from the tobacco industry way back during the 1998 tobacco settlement, "Hook them while they are young and you have a customer for life." The tobacco industry spends billions on research, development, and marketing. Just yesterday, Bloomberg News reported that Philip Morris, maker of Marlboros, forecasted higher than expected profits this year, citing soaring demand for their Zyn pouches. U.S. sales of Zyn rose 41% in the third quarter alone. We've worked hard to reduce youth access, but we can't keep up with big tobacco. We need to do more. Nicotine-free generation puts us on a path towards a new generation where tobacco products in stores is not the norm. Malden, Melrose, Reading, Stoneham, Wakefield, Winchester, and Concord have all adopted, along with Brookline, have all adopted nicotine-free generation. And I hope you will consider doing the same. This is an important step in protecting our youth from addictive tobacco products. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Chris Duffy. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me. My name is Chris Duffy. I'm the CEO of James J. Duffy Incorporated. We're a third-generation wholesale convenience store distributor, currently in Chelsea, Massachusetts, since 1941. I'm here to speak against the nicotine generation policy for several reasons. The first and most important reason is it will not work. You've heard statistics from these fine people here about flavored menthol tobacco and nicotine being banned in Massachusetts since 2019. Yet when Maureen goes to the schoolyards, and I'm sure Sharon, when you go to the schoolyards, you're still finding flavored nicotine products. And there was some statistics as to, where are they getting them, right? That aside, you can't ban something twice when you already banned it the first time and it didn't work. The issue that you have in front of you is education and its enforcement. And to clarify some of the statistics that were being thrown around a little bit earlier, it's actually $6.3 billion that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has received from people that use tobacco and nicotine from that master settlement agreement. They have spent 98% of that money on other stuff. They have spent $30 million on tobacco cessation programs and on youth prevention of the use of tobacco products. We need 10 more Sharons and 10 more Maureens to be going around and making sure that people are doing the right thing. We need to lobby our state legislature, and unfortunately, your city councilors aren't going to be able to, they can lobby your state legislatures, but that money has to come from the state. And we have to go to the state and tell them they need to start spending that money on what it was supposed to be for. And Dr. Mark Gottlieb, who is very integral in this nicotine-free generation policy, will tell you, if they spent the money on what they were supposed to do, we wouldn't be sitting here. And these people are out there working very hard, doing their job, but we are not funded properly to protect our children. And as far as a couple of other things, nicotine and tobacco is just the low-hanging fruit. I mean, you heard the gentleman speaking on Zoom about engine gasolines. Well, Anthony Cho, who works with Maureen, recently testified at the Medford Board of Health. And he said, people ask, what about alcohol, marijuana, and other things? To which he replied to his own question, we can only do one thing at a time. So if you don't think they're coming after alcohol and sweets, just like he said, sweets, right? This is just the low-hanging fruit because there's no critical mass of people using this product. And as far as the products that you see over here, if they're flavored or taken against the law, that needs to be enforced, right? And Peabody is so much an island, but even if you get, like I said, the whole state of Massachusetts has banned flavored products and menthol products, yet we still have a problem. All you're doing is duplicating that problem, the ban. Like, we have a rule that says you need to be 21 to buy something. That rule needs to be enforced. We need to educate children not to start using these products to begin with. And this initiative, as well-intentioned as it may be, is not going to work. And that's really the most important part. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Arthur Hiu, please come up.
Hello. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Arthur Hiu. I own and operate A&L Liquors right down here in Peabody Square for the last 39 years. My family's been in the liquor industry for probably over 80 years. My great-uncle owned a store downtown, and my son just recently opened a store on Lowell Street in Peabody. I'm against this ban for obvious reasons. I'm a retailer, and we abide by the rules as best we can, and for many, many years. And like the people that spoke before me, I have to agree with them that this is an educational issue, that the youth need to be educated, as I was, as Stephanie Peach was earlier. She mentioned she went to school with my son. It's just, I see a lot of retailers here. I know some of them. One of them's my partner here, Rajesh, behind me. He's owns DNR Market and a couple other locations, and this will directly impact our sales, our livelihood, our, just doing business, and it will affect us. It will hurt us if we can no longer sell tobacco products to people. Guys go golfing, they want to buy a couple of cigars or something. They'll go to surrounding communities and buy that stuff. If there'll be like a grace period where others have said, oh, it won't affect anything. Well, you haven't run a liquor store for 39 years. It definitely will affect things, especially convenience stores. I think it needs to be a little bit, we need to educate the kids a little bit better, and the retailers as well. But if this is a state issue, and it's all things are fair, I mean, it's just a violation, in my opinion, to ban something that is an adult thing. Like, I sell alcohol, you have to be 21 to purchase alcohol. I have a scanning system. It's not 100%. There's gonna be mistakes made, errors made, it happens, but we pay the penalties if that happens, and we know that. The law is you gotta be 21 to smoke, you gotta be 21 to drink. Voting, I'm just speaking in opposition of this. I think it would hurt us tremendously. And I am a Peabody resident as well. I was a local football coach for 14 years. I coached the youth. So I'm very, close to this community. I've given back, I've paid taxes here, I live here still. My family lives here, my kids live here, my siblings live here. We own property here, we pay taxes here, and, you know, I think that we're just kind of overstepping something here. It's a basic issue with education, I think, and you got to be 21, and that's the law. That's it. Thank you for letting me speak. Okay.
Thank you. Your local business perspective is very important. It was appreciated that you came tonight. Thank you. Josh Patel. Yeah, you're next. On DNR. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to speak. We are accepting if the state making the rules, then we can accept those things, but it's going by the town. We want to help our kids, because I have like 17 years old, my daughter. She's going on a high school, and we educate them. They knows they're coming in a store to helping some time, and they knows like, okay, this smoke is no good for the health. That's why and they're trying on convince on a school to like, don't smoke. How they got it? Their family smoking, and they left over like father, yeah, mother, sister, who's older, and they got that smoke. That's why we want to just convince you guys, when the state make the rules, we accept those one to help our business. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth Fleet. Welcome, Beth. Please come up and join us at the table.
Thank you for this opportunity. I am a Peabody resident. I am not speaking in favor of or against this, but just want to praise the Board of Health for putting forth this into the community, because this issue is a very big issue, and we can approach it from many different angles. So I'm just going to talk about a couple experiences that I have had. First of all, I'm a former high school teacher. I would gladly have taught an extra class a full year rather than have had the duty of going into the girls' room and checking to see who is smoking and dealing with the whole scramble. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. And what I did experience is that it is our most vulnerable youth that gravitate to the nicotine products. And the Board of Health is trying to protect that very vulnerable population, because it is true. The nicotine industry does want to hook them, and just today learning about all these new products, I mean, I had no idea of all of these products. So this is a conversation that has to continue no matter what the outcome. Secondly, I'd like to speak from personal experience. My mother began smoking at a young age. It was very much the norm. If you looked at an advertisement in a magazine, you'd have a very suave doctor saying it is so good for your health to have cigarettes. And don't forget, a lot of our GIs in the war, I mean, the smoking really did help them with all the stresses of battle. But my mother had her first heart attack at age 45 because at that point, birth control hormones were very strong, and she had a heart attack. Later on, it was discovered there was more damage to her heart than she ever realized, so that in her later years, and she was healthy aside from having become very addicted to cigarettes, she ended up developing congestive heart failure. And the personal impact in a family is very great. And I recall, as she was weakening, she said, "Oh, if I'd only known how devastating this is." And I turned to her at that point and I said, Mom, you didn't know. You know, they helped you to hook you. And I think this is where you become very, very angry with the whole industry. And I do understand the economics of it and the whole personal freedom, everything. But I'm just saying the conversation itself is very important because it is our most vulnerable young population that tends to get hooked. There was nothing I was able to say to those high schoolers, trying to appeal to them to stop. And we do need to protect our youth. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Beth. Maybe, Sharon, maybe we can take some Zoom calls. If you want to use the raise hand feature, we'll recognize you and hear what you have to say. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
Hi, I'm Mark Gottlieb. I'm the Executive Director of the Public Health Advocacy Institute at Northeastern University School of Law in Boston, where I'm on the faculty. And I just wanted to mention we received no funding for this work. I represented the town of Brookline successfully defending this policy from a legal challenge from the retail sector of the tobacco industry. And as was mentioned, the case went to the SJC and established the nicotine-free generation policy as a valid and constitutional exercise of local public health power in Massachusetts. And by the way, just to be clear, there are no unintended consequences of this policy in other jurisdictions. Brookline is the first and only place so far in the entire world to implement this policy. And as Professor Silbaugh noted, no stores there have gone out of business in the 3 years it has been in effect. And this regulation, proposed regulation, is sound public health policy. Just in the current October 2024 issue of the journal Lancet Public Health, there's a study that estimates the impact of a generational tobacco sales ban on lung cancer in 185 countries and finds that based on current trends, this policy would prevent nearly 2 million lung cancer deaths just among those born between 2006 and 2010. And nicotine-free generation will also have some very positive near to midterm effects for young people who access tobacco outside retail despite being underage. Older peers with access to tobacco products are a significant source of these products for youth. And this access would be reduced with the progressive increase in the minimum sales age under this policy. Because while a 21-year-old may still be an older peer to a high school student, it becomes less likely that someone in their mid to late 20s, after this policy has been in effect for just a few years, would still be in any teen's social circle. So this is the effect that was in fact forecast by the Institute of Medicine's model that was used to predict the impact of raising the minimum sales age for tobacco to either 21 or 25. And while for some, the nicotine-free generation idea may seem radical or a step too far, they may actually be in the minority. A study published by the CDC in 2023 found that in a national survey, the majority of Americans actually favor a policy to ban the sale of all tobacco products. And I'd like to address the concerns raised around contributing to black markets or cross-border sales that this policy might create. You know, there must already be a strong demand for a product to create a black market or to get folks to cross borders into neighboring towns. This was, in fact, the case with the flavored tobacco sales ban, as Mr. Duffy correctly noted a few minutes ago. But one of the reasons Tobacco 21 did not create a black market was because young people did not lose the ability to purchase tobacco. They never had it, so there wasn't an established retail demand from those under the legal age. And likewise, nicotine-free generation affects sales only to the next generations. for whom there is no strong existing demand for nicotine products. For this reason, I think concerns about this proposed policy creating a black market or causing massive cross-border sales are largely unfounded. Look, you know, the future of Peabody retailers can't really be completely dependent on selling tobacco to folks who are kids today in elementary, middle, or high schools, and creating a lifelong economic burden in the service of nicotine for those people, for those kids. Remember, retailers do not lose a single current customer under this policy. Yes, it is a ban, but one that is phased in very gradually over several decades. Tobacco products are the deadliest consumer products sold in the United States, and in my opinion, it is strongly in the interest of public health that the next generations are spared the mental and physical costs of nicotine addiction, not to mention the economic costs. This board can help really achieve this by approving the amended regulation and joining the now growing ranks of other communities in Massachusetts that have already adopted it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Maybe we'll take one more Zoom call?
Oh, there we go. Hi. Hi, my name is Emily Ouija, and I live in Cambridge. I'm opposed to the generational tobacco ban. I want to really thank the elected officials, especially, and individuals who spoke against this tonight already, and I hope I won't be repetitive. I'll keep it short. But as a private Massachusetts citizen with no affiliation, I just wanted to say I'm very disturbed that this proposal has been coordinated primarily by professional tobacco control activists who are going around to different communities and towns in Massachusetts in what I would call sinister, coordinated effort to prevent adult choice. There's been a lot of talk tonight about youth. Anyone pushing this ban talks about nothing but youth and teenagers, and it's completely disingenuous. I oppose this policy because it proposes to restrict the freedom of adults to choose for themselves. We allow adult consumers to choose addictive substances and practices like alcohol, marijuana, and lottery gambling. It's ridiculous to propose a complete ban on tobacco and nicotine when there's no evidence that isn't cherry-picked and distorted to suggest that tobacco and nicotine are so much more dangerous than any of the above-mentioned substances. Comparing nicotine to asbestos is absolutely ridiculous. Tobacco use is declining, so tobacco control proposes to take a sledgehammer to adult choice and ban tobacco and nicotine in all forms without investing in adequate education. I ask you not to adopt this proposal and stand up to special interest groups who don't represent Massachusetts citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Here on the sheet, Carlos Cesar. Carlos, please come up and sit at the table. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. I just want to tell you a quick story. I'm a current owner-operator of a franchise gas station on Route 1, which is 7-Eleven.
Oh, yeah.
70% of my customers are not Peabody resident. 5 years ago, since all these ban has started, I've lost $60,000 in revenue, tobacco revenue, nicotine revenue. Where does taxes go? Went to a different state or different town. Yes, I'm still surviving, but we are the license holder that we obey to all the state laws and the town laws. How are we gonna control the people that sells online? We pay our dues, we pay our taxes, we raise family from this job. Again, we penalizing the law-abiding citizen. That's a quick story. Sorry, a little nerve. First time I speak in
No,
public
that's all right.
like that.
You're doing fine. I buy my gasoline there, by the way, and I'm a
Okay.
Peabody resident, so
Okay.
I'm in that minority.
Quick success story if you want to Yeah, you're part of the good 30%? Okay.
I drive by on my way.
Okay. I worked 17 years, 80 hours a week to become the business owner of that location. I raised 2 beautiful children from that income, okay? Everything is going more and more expensive, with more and more regulation, with everything being controlled and penalizing the good taxpayer citizen. It's putting a big burden on us. Yes, you might see a big corporation name on that big sign, but that's 4 families live from that franchise location. And that's all I have to say. And I oppose that. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Yep, testimony is important. One more on the list, and we'll take some more Zoom calls. John Salisbury, is John still here? I think he just left. Yeah, Inspector, okay. Well, if he comes back, we can hear from him. Why don't we take a couple more Zoom calls? Sharon, do you think we have a lot of Zoom participants? Right now there's 2 hands raised. Okay. Let's take them.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Hi, it's nice to join you again. I came to testify at the Board of Health at Peabody about 10 years ago when Peabody took the courageous action of being one of the first towns in Massachusetts to raise the sales age to 21. And I just want to thank Peabody and this Board of Health for that courageous action, which led to a state law, which then led to a national law raising the sales age to 21. And I just want to applaud Peabody for being that courageous, one of the first towns to do that. And thank you, because as a pediatrician, it makes my life so much better, more fulfilling, when the children who I take care of don't end up using tobacco and suffering the harms throughout their life. I have been a pediatrician for 25 years. I came to you with Lester Hartman, who's now in his later years and couldn't be here today, to really testify on behalf of nicotine-free generation. Specifically, I wanted to address a couple of points. This idea of an island. The only way that the state level bill happens is through courageous cities and towns like Peabody and the other 9 that have done this so far. The industry shuts down state level action unless a lot of towns come together first and take a courageous action. That is how a state level bill happens, and usually pretty quickly once the momentum gets going, as it is for NFG. So it won't be long, just to reassure the counselors and the businesses here, I think, before town by town, if Peabody takes this action, that we will be on a level playing field. The other thing I wanted to say is, in terms of protecting the kids of Peabody themselves, having a single town do this, an island, does matter for the protection of children in that town and the protection of youth in that town. Take the example of Needham, which was the first town in Massachusetts to ever raise the sales age to 21. You would think, oh, well, maybe kids would just go to the next town. Well, what happened in Needham over the course of 3 years, and I published this work in the New England Journal of Medicine, was that there was the biggest ever reduction in youth tobacco use that we've ever seen. It was a 50% reduction of youth tobacco use in Needham, despite the fact that the towns around them didn't do it. Years later, other towns around Needham caught up, but we were able to look at that data and show that the effects of the people who are right there in the town mattered so much. And that's because people who are not addicted to tobacco don't go and travel far to try to purchase something that they're not addicted to. And that speaks to the other people who you've heard today who testified on behalf of nicotine-free generation. Really does work. Um, If, in considering this bill, in this regulation, you have an opportunity to make an enormous difference to protect the health of the next generation, the regulation before you will not only phase out the sales of tobacco products so that the next generation would ever be sold them, but over time, it dramatically reduces the availability of tobacco products to young people from non-retail sources such as older peers. More than half of underage access to tobacco products comes from older peers. And by design, the nicotine-free generation increases the age gap between young people and those who may be sold tobacco products. But it does something even more important. It denormalizes a product that has been marketed for generations to the American people. 5 years after the enactment of this policy in Peabody, the difference in age between a high school junior and a person eligible to be sold tobacco products will increase from 5 to 10 years. 10 years in, the difference in age will be 15 years, which is well beyond the age range of peers or even most siblings. The policy is a backstop to end youth tobacco dependence in a gradual and controlled way that won't leave anyone who's currently being sold tobacco without an option. It won't take a single current customer away from the stores that sell these products, and yet will bring about a profound change that will greatly benefit the community's health. And although this policy appears to be focused on stopping sales to adults, it actually is all about protecting the next generation and all future generations from the known harms caused by the impact of nicotine dependence on the mental, physical, and financial health of our population, our community. The value of this freedom from tobacco dependence will be immeasurable. And once again, I'm Jonathan Winikoff. I'm a professor of pediatrics at Mass General Hospital, been taking care of kids for 25 years. I'm not funded by anyone other than my desire to protect my patients and the community members across the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, Doctor, and thank you for your patience. Sorry to take you so late.
Not at all.
All right, thanks again. With respect to people who are here, I've gone through the whole list, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you too. Is there anyone who would like to be recognized to speak who's not on the list? Did anybody want to speak who didn't get a chance to sign in? Just checking. All right. Why don't we continue then with Zoom?
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
My name is Darshan Rambat, and first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak in front of you all and raise my views. I feel that at the heart of the generational ban is the issue of personal freedom. In the democratic societies, individuals are typically granted the rights to make personal choices about their lives, including whether or not to use tobacco products. A generational ban undermines this very principle by restricting the adults to make informed decisions about their health and lifestyles. Tobacco use, despite its own risk, is a personal choice, and implementing such a ban could set a concerning precedent for local governmental outreach and personal choices, potentially leading to further restrictions on individual freedoms. Not only that, this could also result in a social inequality as it could create another class of citizens based on the time they were born. So they won't have the same opportunity to make informed decisions about their health just like the other adults do. If we look at the economic implications of this proposal, then the ban could result in a job losses across multiple sectors. As everyone, previous speakers mentioned that local businesses rely heavily on sales of tobacco and lottery tickets. These businesses are already facing challenges due to previous restrictions, just such as the statewide ban on the flavored tobacco. So consequently, introducing this new ban could result in closure of many small businesses and significant job losses. So in my opinion, my suggestion would be the, that in order to stop this people smoking, the best option is to educate people and raise awareness about the risk associated with it, instead of just banning just directly by the local government. And just to put some stats here, some of the previous speakers mentioned that retailers won't lose their existing customers. Well, I feel that this is a deceiving statement, because yes, that's true that they won't lose it right now, but eventually they will, because there won't be new customers. And someone also mentioned that the sale of the neighboring towns and cities didn't go up when some of the towns banned the sale of tobacco. Well, to put some numbers in front of you all, if we look at the Massachusetts itself, like when the Massachusetts implemented a flavored tobacco ban, the sale of New Hampshire, especially the menthol flavored, grew up from 18 to 25%. So this shows that people didn't just stop smoking. They just went to neighboring towns, cities, or states wherever they found. So to conclude my statement, I would like to reiterate that while the generational tobacco ban is rooted in a desire to protect public health, its potential drawbacks, such as the infringement on personal freedoms, negative economic impacts, and unintended consequences, should prompt a reconsideration of its feasibility. By focusing on education and additional support, the town can still promote healthier lifestyle, and it is crucial to find a balanced approach that respects personal autonomy while effectively addressing the issue. I would like to thank again for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us, Darshan.
Thank you.
Any others on Zoom who want to be recognized? Do you see some hands raised? Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Just want to be sure I'm giving everyone a chance. Okay. If there's no objection, we can recognize Dr. Jonathan. Doctor, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I just realized that I didn't have a chance to say, because I wanted to keep my remarks brief, but I wanted to let the board know that I have studied the mental health effects of nicotine and tobacco use, and have found that the nicotine addiction itself is actually quite dangerous for mental health of youth and young adults. It increases depression, anxiety, and increases suicidal ideation. So I just wanted to add that to the list. We know about lung cancer, we know about heart disease, but those are late effects. When we think about the youth, we think about mental health as pediatricians, we think about the mental health crisis in youth. I think it's very important to protect not just their physical health and their future physical health, but to think also about what teenagers are going through now, the stress, the anxiety, the things that are really in their lives, and how nicotine does not serve them well. And yet what we see from the industry is this intense marketing effort to try to get the next generation hooked on nicotine. And that has not abated in 25 years of my being a pediatrician. They keep shifting from product to product. So their motivations are quite clear. And I think our motivations as public health officials and as pediatricians are also quite clear. And I just wanted you to hear from me to appreciate that balance. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Do we think that's all? We've been at this for nearly 2 hours now. I hope everyone's had a chance to be heard and to listen to. That's okay. So what we've got before us is, if there isn't anyone else who wants to be heard, is the board ready to close the public hearing? Have we heard it? Have we heard all there is to hear? Yeah? Yes. Okay, all right, then I'll close the public hearing. What's before us is to either adopt or not adopt, or adopt some of the regulations that have been proposed and that we have heard testimony on. There are a couple that I find just housekeeping, and I'd be in favor of those. I wonder what the other board members are thinking at this point. I'll open it up for any comments, if you have. We don't need to have a formal motion right away. I'll let you gather your thoughts. I'm hearing loud and clear the business owners, the business community, the concerns that the business community has through their elected officials. I do. And I hear from our medical community. We heard from doctors, some who are still here, some are on the call. And that's quite compelling, no question about it. The mental health component is compelling. So I'm trying to digest a lot of that. There was a lot in the emails. And I'd just like to say how appreciative I am, and I'm sure the other board members join me, in the civil tone that we've had tonight and throughout all of this. I very much appreciate it from both sides. It's really the only way to get to the best result. So thank you all, and those who are still watching on Zoom, thank you. What do you think? I'll continue then. I wonder if some of you would allow me to ask some questions. 3 minutes isn't a whole lot of time. Chris, I'm looking at you in particular. Sure. You don't have to come to the table. We can hear you unless you think technology. All right. Would you mind? I'm sorry to inconvenience you. You're probably comfortable there. You would. Oh, Chris Duffy. Duffy, right?
Yes,
yeah,
no E.
Yeah. In business since 1941 in Chelsea.
My grandfather originated the company in Charlestown.
Is that so?
In 1941. We moved to Chelsea in 2016. And quite frankly, we opened up a second warehouse in Pawtucket, Rhode Island in 2022 due to the flavored menthol ban in Massachusetts. And we currently do provide products to New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Yes.
I'll consider you an expert.
You know what the definition of an expert is?
Tell me.
Someone that used to know everything about something.
Yeah, that's very good. Being on the board for as many years as I've been now, and hearing from Joyce and from Sharon, it seems to me that there is an active effort to sell tobacco products to youth. And I look at that Yoda, where's that? I look at that, and that concerns me. And the choice of colors and things, am I wrong about that?
You are not at all, but I will tell you, it has to be qualified. We are seeing an influx, and our company we don't carry products like that. We try to stick with things that are in the process with the Food and Drug Administration. There are companies making things in China, and they're just trying to influx the market, and that's why enforcement and education is important. Major tobacco companies don't make any of those products on your desk, but they and as a matter of fact, we had a product that one of our buyers brought in, and before we put it out on the market, I said, well, where's the letter? And the letter was signed by Samantha. That's it, just Samantha. And our buyer took it in. And I said, well, we can't sell that, we've got to send it back, and that's the end of it. So I think, you know, as a distributor, we need to make sure we're doing our job, that we're not sending products to these retailers that they shouldn't be sending. And retailers have to be diligent in making sure that they're not selling products that they shouldn't be selling. And for the most part, the retailers of Peabody are, you know, they're part of your community. They're out doing their job. I mean, Sharon's around explaining to them what they should and shouldn't be doing. And this ban is prohibiting them from selling legal products to adults, yet it's allowing the people to still buy things illicitly. It's not going to stop anything. And I had mentioned before about the state only spending 2% of their money on what they were supposed to. And we need better funding for these people, but with or without the funding, quite frankly, these high school kids are not buying flavored vape at the local convenience stores and the liquor stores. They're finding other places to get them. But that's not a prohibition issue. You can prohibit it 42 times, but that's not going to stop them from getting it illegally. All you're doing is stopping people that are doing legal things from doing in the legal way.
We do see what appears to be some confusion on the part of the retailers to know what they can and cannot sell. We ask for the letters, you mentioned the letters, and sometimes we've seen letters that say it's okay, but we know it's not. You know, I don't need to be an expert. I can smell the flavors in those. And so what do we do about that?
Well, I mean, those products shouldn't have been there to begin with. I imagine if somebody's purporting that something is within the Massachusetts flavor ban law, and it's actually not, they need to go after them. I mean, that's an enforcement issue, right? I mean, the products that are here that are legal, that, I mean, December, Brown University School of Health study talking about vape and nicotine pouches and how they're an effective off-ramp for people trying to quit cigarettes. And they brought up the point that you wouldn't ban methadone to get a person to stop using heroin, right? And you're making it accessible for people that are trying to quit cigarettes, which is dangerous, right? And it's at an all-time low. In Sweden, they're about to become one of the first, I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first cigarette-free smoking countries in the world, and they define that as under 5%. And one of the big reasons these nicotine pouches come out in Sweden. You know, and they were one of the first ones to have it. So I think, I'm not saying they're safe before anybody tries to misquote me, but certainly they're less harmful than cigarette smoking.
Thanks for coming back to the table.
Thank you very much for allowing me to answer some questions. I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a lot to consider. I'm open to any comments that the board members have. Yeah, Doc, do you want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
I want to thank everybody for their time and for coming out for comment. What's been impressed upon me is that I think we all have the common goal of reducing tobacco use among youth. I think that's been clear throughout all of the comments, that enforcement and education are an important piece of this, and I think the retailers know that. And so when considering this before us, I think that what is before us will have a considerable impact on enforcement. And so I guess to back up, you know, this has been, this issue is complex. I mean, I think that there are a lot of issues on the table, and a lot of people that would be impacted. And so when considering something, you know, I have two things, and when in practice, I have two kind of tenets that when making big decisions. Is it the right time, and is it the right intervention? And one of the rubrics that I was trained in and kind of using to answer those questions is kind of a 2x2 square, is what is the risk and what is the benefit of doing something, and what is the risk and what is the benefit of not doing something. And I think here, I think that we have a lot of, I think the risk of not doing something is that we're going to lose time. I think the benefit of a tobacco-free generation measure is that over time, in an enforcement way, is that the youth stay the same age, but the enforcement, I think, will get considerably easier because it'll be recognized, people will be able to recognize somebody who is able to buy versus not. And I think enforcement, it will get easier. And so I think that that's one of the benefits. I think we also heard the issue about it being an island. I think one of the benefits of doing something is that when more localities adopt this, it will reduce the burden of, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I think kind of in number that this measure will be, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
What I think I'm hearing is that more communities that adopt regulations like this, the less islands will exist. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And then I think that over time that you know, as we've seen, that this will begin to phase out tobacco sales. And I think that's the ultimate goal. And I think the ultimate goal for public health is that phasing out tobacco sales is to the benefit to our population as a whole. So I think I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I think I'll pause there and see what the chief might have to say.
Yeah, very good.
I just again like to echo my fellow board members on thanking everybody from both sides, because it's been an education from distributors to advocates for and against. Since we brought this up a couple months ago, and we've done a lot of talking in our meetings about this, I've always had concerns, primarily the small business owners in the city, in the ramifications of something like this that can happen. Whether it's gradual or whether it's acute, it's still taking away potential business owners. That's first and foremost tonight. My primary concern is when you're an adult, you're an adult. And as an adult that's made good decisions and bad, I was still an adult and allowed to make those. As one of the speakers earlier brought up, as a former veteran and a former smoker that smoked while I was in the military, and to be asked to serve this country, to then come home to your community and not be allowed to do things that other adults are allowed to do, whether or not they're veterans, but just primarily because of something like this. We all share our concerns about public health, and we all know through education that smoking can lead to cancer, and it's a burden to our healthcare system and all those concerns that we all share. That's nothing new to us. From the enforcement side, what Joyce and her team does and what Sharon and her team do, we meet monthly and we bring vendors in for violations. There's only so much they can do, and if they had more people, we would probably be able to do it. And I'd like to see more on the enforcement side. That being said, even after tonight and hearing the pros and cons, I still have a real issue with moving ahead with something like this for adults. I'd love to see more education. I'd love to see more of that funding come down to educate our kids. I have 2 teenage boys. I hope they never decide to do this, but I also know as adults we can't guide our children to do things that they want to do later on in life. But I'll defer back to the chair.
Arthur, do you have another minute to come to the table? I have some questions.
Absolutely.
You're a Peabody guy, if I can
Yes,
call
I
you
am.
that, right? Part of the community.
Yes.
You know the challenges that we're facing. It's not so much that one retailer didn't ask for an ID, and it happened to be while Joyce was sending in somebody. I think that my perspective is that in the practice of all of this, there's going to be some places where we're falling down. That's certainly not what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is that Peabody doesn't have, and most likely, even with the very supportive comments of our city councilors, isn't going to have all of the resources to do the kinds of enforcement that I think is necessary without some participation from the industry. Do you think it's reasonable for us, the 3 board members, staff, the city, to count on you all in the industry, particularly in Peabody, maybe the distributors who service Peabody, to find some way to work together to do a better job of preventing sales to youth? What do you think of that?
Absolutely. Especially because I sell alcohol, which is, the laws are very strict, especially alcoholism. It's just, in my industry, and I can only speak for the alcohol industry and not the convenience stores and gas stations and so forth, but we're all similar because they go hand in hand, a lot of these convenience items. Cigarettes, for me, are convenience items. I don't smoke. My dad died of lung cancer, but I could not stop my father from smoking 2 packs of Marlboros every day. He died when he was 80 years old from lung cancer, so I had to bring him to treatments for chemotherapy, and obviously that wasn't, I'm pretty sure his lung cancer had something to do with him smoking cigarettes, but he was an adult, and he was smoking cigarettes since he was 10 years old. Now, I'm opposed to this because adults make adult decisions on their own. And I can tell you this, I have a son that's 33 years old, I have another son that's 30, and I have 4 granddaughters. Each of my boys has 2 daughters, so I wouldn't encourage them to smoke. I wouldn't encourage them to vape or any of this stuff. In fact, I don't even carry some of this stuff that, I carry a very small amount of cigarettes, but it is a significant part of my business because people come there for convenience. They don't want to drive to New Hampshire to get 2 cartons of cigarettes like I hear some people, oh, I go to New Hampshire to buy these and that. But I think that, yes, to answer your question before I get off track and start ranting, yes, I think we definitely can work together to try to make this youth education or prevention of, it's very hard for me to answer that question because I'm trying to do business and create, an income for my family. And I was able to put 2 kids through college running that small business. So if I can't sell tobacco products, it will directly impact us. But I've worked with some of these people here before to be educated myself, because like I said earlier, I'm a youth football coach for years in Peabody, and I'm concerned about the health of kids. And you had a pediatrician here earlier speaking, which was nice, and everybody has good statistics. And some of the statistics that we talked about earlier were from quite a few years ago. I know it takes a while to compile all this data, but it's numbers and people talking. But the fact always goes back that you got to be 21 to smoke, you got to be 21 to drink. You know, I have a hard time trying to like rationalize that if I'm like at a party and say I have a 21-year-old son that just graduated from college, and he can't smoke a cigar, because he's not old enough. And yet everybody else there that might be a year or 2 older than him are all at this party. Like he can't make that decision. And I don't think anybody has the right to make that decision for him or her, you know, regardless of if it's healthy or not. Someone mentioned earlier, I think Julie Daigle said McDonald's food isn't healthy. I mean, neither are Twinkies, but I love those, and I'll eat them, you know. I know the risks involved. I was raised in Peabody. I went to school on the old location, here on this location, but the old
A little bit over
building.
there, right?
Yeah. And I went to Peabody High School, and I went to college, and I graduated, and I decided to take over the family business, and I've been there for 39 years in that spot. And all of those 39 years, I've sold cigarettes and tobacco products, cigars. You know, every once in a while, there's an incident, or there's a product that I might sell that I wasn't aware of because the distributor, there's a disconnect with communication, like Mr. Duffy was saying, in regard to the state or at the federal level, like governing these products that are coming in and out, and we don't know as retailers what is legal for us. So the money that should be spent on prevention and education and healthcare to further educate us, because I grew up here in this community. There was kids that smoked, and there was kids that didn't smoke, and there was kids that smoked marijuana. There was people that drank. They were underage, and if something happened, it was enforced, and they got caught or whatever it was. But it wasn't encouraged, I don't think, by parents or other community members. We don't really walk around. I don't walk around the city with like a box of cigarettes and, hey, you guys want to buy some cigarettes? Like, it's an adult store. People go and buy adult things there. And that's it. I mean, I don't know how to answer your question.
Well, no, you did a terrific job answering it. What I'm imagining and wondering if it isn't possible is if there isn't some way that with I'll say it, maybe with a formal way of getting your cooperation, distributors' cooperation, in an effort that aligns with what we're trying to do, which is just not sell to under 21. If we couldn't find some way for you to leverage some resources that you have, and for us to do the same, that we couldn't accomplish, do a better job of restricting the sale of tobacco products to underage. I don't know if the other board members are thinking. Chris, you have your hand up. What would?
I mean, I think like as health professionals, you know, like the best hospitals are all run on a dyad method, right? Where they're taking input from different places, and that's not currently done in any of the tobacco prevention boards. Like there should be people, the retailers and distributors, I'm sure would be like to do it, to be part of the solutions. Instead, basically what we're getting is just regulation, almost like we're the bad guy, you're the good guy, and you're gonna get us. You're gonna catch us doing something bad. And that's unfortunately how a lot of retailers fail. And I think if you included retailers, I think you'd get a better result. But I know this is well-intentioned, but I promise you, this isn't gonna work. They've already been, 5 years it's been banned. You're punishing the people that are trying to do the right thing. And I think that's a great idea, bringing them and try to help them be part of the solution.
Okay. I think nutrition's a big thing too. And
Like this product is here, something like, we always talking with the Randy, like who's helping us. Whenever the new product coming, we just telling him like, can you make sure we can carry this one? If this doesn't have flavor or anything.
Yep, I appreciate
That kind
it.
of stuff, like if you guys gonna do it for the retailer, we can give any product coming, the new one, anything, so we can come to the health department to just make sure this product is okay, so we can sell.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have it like anything like.
he's saying, yes, we will work with everyone to prevent as best we can from youth.
So we don't wanna sell any like flavored tobacco, anything more harmless stuff,
All right, let me ask. Sharon, do you have any thoughts on what kind of cooperation we could get or what we need? Do you want to share some of that with us?
Sure. I do have some thoughts on that, but if I could just take a few minutes before I share those thoughts.
Go right ahead.
I really do want to take a few minutes to highlight a few data points that I think are really important. But first, I want to express my thanks to the board because you are tasked with making a really difficult policy decision to improve our community's health and well-being. You've heard from others tonight about the fact that tobacco use is the leading cause of preventable death and disease in the U.S., and it costs Massachusetts almost $12 billion each year in healthcare costs and lost productivity. I wanted to highlight some facts about why we care so much about keeping tobacco away from our young people. The U.S. Surgeon General, as well as federal courts, have determined that the industry marketing strategies target youth and young adults. And the reason they do that, and you've heard this already, but I think we need to reiterate it, tobacco use is established primarily during adolescence. Almost 90% of adult smokers report that they started smoking before age 18. Although smoking rates have fallen among adults and youth, over 10% of U.S. high schoolers use tobacco, and almost 8% are using vaping products. The rates of tobacco use in Peabody have traditionally been higher than the state and national rates. 42% of U.S. high school e-cigarette users report daily or frequent use, which is a strong indicator that they are, in fact, addicted to nicotine. Adolescent developing brains are more susceptible to nicotine addiction. And you've heard this already tonight, but I wanted to read a few lines from a study that was published in the Perspectives in Medicine journal. Adolescents report symptoms of dependence even at low levels of cigarette consumption. The most susceptible youth lose autonomy over tobacco intake within 1 or 2 days of first inhaling a cigarette. Among adolescents, the appearance of tobacco withdrawal symptoms and failed attempts to stop smoking can appear even before consumption reaches 2 cigarettes a day. 70% of U.S. smokers want to quit. 56% had made an attempt to quit in the prior year, but only 8% were successful in quitting for 6 to 12 months. Most smokers make multiple attempts to quit before succeeding, if they ever do succeed, due to the strength of the nicotine addiction. Smoking cessation is and will continue to be important in the strategy to prevent the harms of tobacco. However, given the data showing how addictive nicotine is, preventing tobacco use by youth should be our focus. In Peabody, compliance checks conducted by our inspectors and by the North Shore Cape Ann Tobacco Control Program over the past 2 years found that roughly a third of Peabody retailers were carrying products that contained flavor, despite the manufacturer letters to the contrary. As you know, flavored products were banned statewide in 2020, largely because of their appeal to youth. Throughout my 20 years in local public health, we have always been 2 steps behind the tobacco industry. The industry is huge and has immense financial resources. They've been inventive in their efforts to undercut federal, state, and local restrictions. They've been very aggressive in their efforts to attract youth smokers by marketing products with flavors, colors, names, shapes, and other features clearly designed to appeal to kids. And I'd like to just take a moment to do a screen share for the benefit of folks who may be on the Zoom and didn't see the products that Joyce held up. Hold on. Okay. These are products that were purchased in Peabody this week. Yoda, a pen to camouflage the use, a teddy bear. This week in Peabody, these products were purchased by Joyce. Tonight, we have a lot of representatives from the retail tobacco industry in this room. I'd like to propose that we use this opportunity to formally invite them to the table to work with us to keep these deadly products out of the reach of Peabody's children. We've heard many concerns tonight about the impacts of further regulation of tobacco products. One option for us to consider is to engage the retail tobacco industry in a formal, voluntary effort to better regulate themselves so they become our partners in the effort to prevent our youth from the lifelong effects of a tobacco addiction. Some elements of an industry-led self-regulation program could include the industry will set up, fund, and implement training programs to educate retailers about existing tobacco laws, as well as new products being promoted by distributors and manufacturers that undercut existing laws. This could lead to a certification program for tobacco retailers, very similar to the requirement that restaurants have for certified food safety managers in their establishments. The industry could set up compliance monitoring, self-inspection programs to promote compliance among their members. The industry could fund 2 additional compliance checks a year by the regulatory agencies, the North Shore Cape Ann Tobacco Control Program. The industry could agree to not sell products that are clearly designed to appeal to youth because they have flavor enhancers or they have product packaging that looks like candies, toys, school supplies. Those products, you would agree not to sell them. The industry could develop protocols for assessing new products for flavors beyond accepting manufacturers' letters or distributor marking materials and assess them for their appeal to youth before you put them on your shelves for sale. The retailers can increase the visibility of signage that educates and informs purchasers of the health risks of tobacco and nicotine and the addiction potential of these products. There could be an evaluation designed to assess retailer compliance with this voluntary program, and there could be other measures that we could incorporate after discussion when we engage with the retailers at the table. In return, the Peabody Board of Health could agree to table any discussions about nicotine-free generation regulations for a period of time, a year or 2 years, or whatever time the Board of Health feels would be appropriate. And at the end of that period, the data from the evaluation will be used by the Board of Health as part of its determination whether to continue support for the self-regulation program and whether to proceed with additional regulation. Let's ask the retail tobacco industry to partner with us in a meaningful way to reduce the rates of kids initiating tobacco use. Thank you.
Does this sound reasonable? I'm just asking you, Arthur.
Me? It sounds very reasonable to me. Yeah, of course.
Rajesh, it seems
Yeah.
reasonable? Yep. Carlos, seems reasonable? So you're doing some of this already?
We do too, yes.
Are there other retailers here? You could just nod. Does anybody think what we're asking here, or what, some of the thoughts that Sharon's put down are unreasonable? That it might work? Chris?
Definitely will work, definitely, yeah. It can just be a stricter policy, that's all.
One more thing, Carlos, and then I want to hear Chris's response. Go ahead, Carlos, what did you want to say?
So when you guys were saying there's 20% of license holder had violation and the flavor ban.
Yeah.
There was so much miscommunication, as Randy can witness, that we were not aware of certain product that was
Has a flavor.
Legal for us to carry.
flavor, which it didn't say the word on it.
Okay.
So we paid the price.
That's apparent.
Lost my license for 1 week.
I remember. I voted for that. I'm sorry to say it. It probably made my gas price go higher. But I understand. But the burden, and we're sensitive to that. It's clear there's miscommunication, but the burden can't be on Inspector Randy. You know, so yep. But we need to partner better, don't we? Okay.
Miscommunication, not with the Board of Health.
Okay.
For us too, like from vendors or anything.
All right. Chris, you wanted to say one more thing?
I was going to agree in whole, but that's a lot to digest in an oral
Yeah, of course it is.
suggestion. From the financial part of it, it's already being done. All of that money that the state has received is from cigarette, tobacco, and nicotine users. It's in the form of a tax from the master settlement agreement.
Yep.
And it's gone to them for that, and they were supposed to distribute it to the towns and cities, and they just didn't.
But here we sit in Peabody,
Yes,
right? Trying to come up with a solution.
yes.
Trying to find an effective way of getting the master settlement agreement proceeds, I don't think is really,
That's not gonna happen.
right.
It's never gonna happen anyway. We're wasting
It's kind of what I'm saying. All right, but,
whatever the program that you guys decide to put together, it's just gotta be some type of a reasonable,
okay.
I mean, reasonable regulations, nobody's gonna disagree with.
All right. I think what Sharon's what I think I'm hearing is that there be some formality to this, that we'll contact you, and you could contact associates and other business leaders, and we would find a way to have your side work with our side, and we would negotiate some of these things. I like the certification idea. I thought that was clever. And then we would do a reassessment. So I think my inclination is, although I'm not ready to cut off debate on this, my inclination is to give that a chance and to hold off on this regulation, knowing that, you know, I might be in favor of it a year or two from now if this doesn't all work, but I'd like to give that a chance. What do the other board members think of that?
So, but before we kind of move on to that, I would like to ask industry, do you smell your products?
Do I smell my products?
Yeah.
What if I had a lack of, I don't know, I'm just saying, I don't know what that means. I don't carry any of that stuff.
Okay.
I've never seen it before, so I might not be the right person to ask that, but when you say, do I smell my products, like I sell alcohol, I'm a liquor store.
Or the vapes, do you smell the vapes?
I have just the ones that, I guess the Zyn ones that are, I don't have vapes at all. I don't sell them, so
Do other retailers? No, so those, before opening those, actually, you can smell.
I don't sell those, so I don't know.
All right.
I don't sell them.
Any of you sell these products, and if you do, no?
I don't even know where do they get them?
You don't smell
Yeah.
I mean, they don't smell
All right.
I personally don't, because I don't sell that product, those.
Can I just add one thing to the conversation?
All right.
It's an interesting thing when, because I think smelling some of this is like a tell, and neither Randy or I can be the only two people in the area who, can smell them and tell them. Ideally, I'd love the industry bigger than this industry to be taking some responsibility for this, because they're the ones, who are sending these folks a letter that's a lie, basically. I think it's not unreasonable for you, regardless if you're gonna lose one sale, because you've opened it and smelled it, that you could make your own determination, the way I do. These things are not, like, it's not a hint of flavor. You can smell it across a room. I'll tell you, this week I was in Peabody and I talked to one of the 7-Eleven owners, not you. And when I told them about, they might be hearing from us about some of these flavored products that they have lettuce for. The woman who was there, the retail owner, said, I sat here and I could smell, and I said, I wondered, there was no candy near me. This was in her own store, and it wasn't until I said, yes, it's that product. And it was in the container, and it was emitting a smell. So whatever the cost is about not being able to sell one product to do the right thing is a big deal, I say.
Okay, I think everybody understands. You want to continue? Yeah, I think it's a very valid point. That's the kind of cooperation I think that we're looking for, that's all, to step it up a bit.
Absolutely, everybody wants to cooperate.
All right. How does the board want to proceed? I know what I'm thinking, and I'll throw it out there. I would entertain a motion to adopt just these housekeeping items, and I would identify them. They don't have anything to do with the generational restriction. They've got to do with just cleaning up some language. I'd entertain a motion, I guess, if someone would be willing to make it. On page 11 is a paragraph that reads, if a retailer with a tobacco product sales permit closes his business before selling the tobacco product sales permit, shall be surrendered, revoked, or not renewed unless the retailer within 10 days of closing the business requests in writing from the Board of Health an extension of time in which to sell and transfer the said permit, and the Board of Health grants the extension. I think that's always been the intention. It's just we want to clean that up. And then just two others on page 15. There's one that reads, no permit holder shall permit any activity to occur on its retail establishment that violates any law aimed at protecting public health. I think that's rather innocuous. And the final one would be on page 15 at the bottom. Any violation of this regulation should be ground for administrative enforcement action by the board, and this is in relation to violations of compliance. And in determining the appropriate action in any given case, the board will consider all relevant factors, including the permittee's prior record, the nature of the offense, and other aggravating or mitigating circumstances. And the following schedule of recommended discipline is a guideline intended to illustrate the range of disciplinary action that the board might impose for certain violations. I'm almost done. The board is not limited by the guidelines of this section and may impose greater disciplines if it sees fit in particular circumstances. Fines and suspensions for violations of this regulation may include but are not limited to, and then they're enumerated there. They're no different than the state regulation, and that's the intention, isn't it? So I'm quite comfortable just as a matter of administration cleaning that up.
Essentially, Chairman, we're cleaning that up because that's what we corrected in this, if we move forward with this in the future, or how it goes now, but we're correcting that now. Okay. Do I have to read that all over?
No, you don't need to read it again. So that's a motion that I'd be looking for, and whether or not the idea that I have that Sharon's put a whole lot of thought, it seems, into all of that is something that you are okay with, then I'd entertain a motion for that as well.
Yeah, so let's, want to take them piece by piece?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the changes in the housekeeping of the violations that you just read off. We'll do that one.
Okay, so we have the administrative. Is there a second to
I
that?
second.
All right, thank you for the second. Is there any discussion on the motion? No, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Those changes to the regulations are now adopted. Is there anything further from the board? Do we want an affirmative action to table this with a review?
Yeah, so I think what probably the next step would be is to either make a motion to table this or an affirmative, or an action to table this, with the understanding that we can meet with the industry. They can review the document that Sharon verbally explained tonight, maybe in the next couple months, and then we can go further from there.
I think that summarizes my hope. Doctor, what do you think?
I think, so we can certainly vote on that. So my inclination is, to move ahead with the tobacco-free generation ban, as I think that's the best thing for the public health of Peabody. I appreciate the willingness for the industry to take a look at these proposals, and I think that that would be a step. However, I think we've seen that although that, you know, with this tobacco-free generation on the table at the moment, there's more buy-in from the industry today. I don't know whether that goes far enough to protect the public health, and so that's where I am right now.
Okay, yeah. I don't really disagree with you. I don't. I'm inclined to adopt it as well. But I'll go back to what I thought was very impressive, by the way. I wish I had gone to medical school, which is is it the right time and the right intervention concept. And I wonder if we couldn't give it some more time to implement what I think I'm hearing here, which is that the industry, given the opportunity, would join us in further restricting the sale of tobacco to youth. And I think it's worth a shot. I'm not closing, my disposition is not to close the door on this, right? And knowing that I have an ally is helpful. But I think we owe it to give it a chance. I didn't go to medical school because I probably couldn't, but that's for another time.
So I understand. I think we should vote on it.
All right, well, you have that in the form of a motion then.
Motion to accept.
We've done the acceptance of the housekeeping. Do you want to put it in a formal motion then to implement the plan that Sharon has laid out and that I had envisioned?
Okay, so you want me to continue on with that motion?
Yeah, and if you'd be willing to second it, yeah, please.
Yeah, so make a motion to approve what Sharon had explained verbally about coming together with the industry to create some safeguards, and we'll table this for a period of time to see if those safeguards are actually beneficial.
Okay. Lisa, you have that, do you? Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Willing to second it?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Opposed?
The ayes have it. Okay. Well, that concludes item 1 that was scheduled for 4:30 to 5:30. Where are the 5:30 hearing people? I hope you're still here. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your civility. Your expertise was very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we wish you well. Thank you. Maybe you could leave some contact information. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, maybe Maureen, would you be willing to coordinate with Sharon in Peabody with some industry experts and contacts. And Joyce, of course. Yeah, Joyce is part of the family. Okay. Very good. In the interest of time, let me ask if the board's ready to open the 5:30 public hearing.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Let me open the 5:30 public hearing. The Peabody Board of Health will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 24th, 2024 at 5:30. Just a moment. Hi, Chief. Good to see you. Good. How's Marguerite? Good.
I want to thank you and the board for your work. And as you know, I didn't speak because I wasn't prepared.
All right.
But I appreciate your work because when I'm watching over my 84 years on earth,
Yeah.
is that we are a soft society.
Yeah.
And this is the text I sent to my grandchildren. I'm going to show it to you.
Dr. Fleet, this is Chief Mendonça, our former fire chief.
Hi.
Long service.
Nice to meet
Yeah.
you.
Texts I sent to my grandchildren.
Good morning to everyone.
If we do not,
Yeah.
destroy
Yeah.
our society, and we need to, I think the majority of people there probably understand that.
Yeah.
And we need to make it clear, if we don't get going, because we are actually, the brain power, we are destroying the kids, because as I drive, I used to go to these homes.
I know.
And the kids were exposed to the smoke. You know, and if they smoke a marijuana or a pot, they're exposed to that.
Yeah.
You know, and that destroys the brain. And that's the brain power of our future.
You got to do something.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
No, well put.
I will thank you.
All right, Chief. Yep. I'm glad you came. It was good to see you over there. Hi,
Very nice to meet you.
Marguerite.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see you.
I think we got a great board working.
Thanks. Thanks for saying, yeah, the staff has been terrific. All right, I'm going to open up a couple public hearings, and we'll try to be expeditious. Thank you, Chief. Let me continue. This is the hearing that was scheduled for Thursday, October 24th, 2024, at 5:30 here in the Higgins Middle School Library at 85 Perkins Street. This is regarding the application for a permit to perform body tattooing submitted by Manuel Penales. Manuel, are you here? If you're on Zoom, just a moment.
I'm going to use the restroom.
Yeah, yeah.
I did let the other applicants know that I tried to dissuade them from having a hearing this month because I didn't know how the hearing would go.
Yeah.
And they insisted they be put on a hearing, and I told them I was willing to, as long as they understood they may be waiting for quite a long period of time.
Okay.
After their hearing, time came and went, so they're not here, so I would suggest that we put them forward for next month.
Okay, you think we ought to do that for both?
I don't know if the other one is here or not.
All right, well, if it's okay with the board, we will continue this public hearing to next month, unless in the meantime, we hear from the petitioner. Let me move forward then to the third and final public hearing for tonight. This is the Peabody Board of Health will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 24th at 5:30 in the Higgins Middle School Library at 85 Perkins Street. This is on the application for a permit to perform body tattooing submitted by Sean Marabito. A vote is anticipated whether to grant or deny the permit. Is Sean here? If you're on Zoom, Sean, let us know with the raise hand feature, and Sharon will move you to a participant, right, or a panelist.
No, I don't see anybody.
We don't see Sean Marabito? Okay. Well, we'll continue this to next month unless we hear from Sean in the meantime. We've still got some business to go through. I don't know how much of the business at this late hour you want to go through, but I'm willing to just go through it.
I think everything else is pretty routine. I wasn't able to get you the minutes for September 26th, so we'll defer that. I don't know if you want to vote on the August 15th minute, but I think everything else is very routine.
So I make a motion to approve the minutes from August 15.
Okay, we have a motion. I'll waive the necessity for a second, and I'll just ask all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. You okay with that, Chief? All right. We'll move on to anything concerning with code enforcement updates. We've got a few housing. Anything there? You'll stop me? We have nuisances. We have tobacco control, we had 2 violations there. We have a food concern, and then some waste hauler code enforcement updates. I didn't see anything particularly concerning. You've all read your permit updates. We've got animals and burials and all the rest that we typically have each month. We have the public health nurses update, the September surveillance report. Anything particularly concerning there? I didn't see anything. All right. Do you want to give us a social services update?
Yep, we have hired all 3 of the vacant staff positions. One of the new hires was actually here tonight, Muriel Portugal Rivera. She's a care navigator, excuse me. And she speaks Spanish, Portuguese, and English, so she'll be a tremendous asset to us. We have 2 more staff, the other care navigator and our social worker, who will be starting on November 12th. So we're happy to be back up to full staff, and then we can get out and start expanding our program offerings.
Oh, very good. Okay. And we have correspondence. We've got a letter from the DEP, Brown and Caldwell. On here, on item C, there was a letter from DEP regarding the monofill. I didn't see that in my package, but I'm sure it's part of the CECs and the rest of the document set, so I'm fine with that. And anything else? Any other items to come before the board? No? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved, seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night.